If we start.
Chair, could I just say that I can't see any of my buttons, so I'm unable to mute, I'm afraid.
Okay. But at the moment, there's no sound issues from this end. I don't know if that's okay, our end.
Yes, it's okay, my end.
Okay, if we go through apologies for absence first then.
Yeah, apologies from Councillors Peter Jones, Andrew Stevens, Leslie Walton and Erica Kirshner.
Thank you. Could I ask for any disclosures of interests, please? Personal or prejudicial? No disclosures? Thank you. Move on to agenda item 3, to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting. So if we can go through for accuracy, page by page. That's page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, and page 8. Can I have 2 hands shown to support that they're accurate?
I'll move you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mike, and thank you very much, Paxton. If we move on then, Audit Wales report City and County of Swansea Audit Plan 2021. I believe Jason Garcia is joining us to present this paper. Jason, can I welcome you to the meeting?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon all. I hope you're all well. You should have in front of you our annual audit plan for 2021 for the Council. I'll talk through it in some of the highlights, but be more than happy to take questions at the end of the presentation. So the first section will outline some of our responsibilities and duties. The first new section really comes in at paragraph 7, where there's a bit of a narrative around the impact of COVID-19 on our work, and obviously it's been a new way of working this last year for us all, and we've commented previously how grateful we are to council officers around the way they've worked with our staff over these last few months, and we'll continue to work in that flexible way. Paragraph 12 then outlines the work that we have to do in relation to your council's financial statements and our financial audit work. And there's a number of bullet points under that paragraph which outline the specifics there. The first exhibit I'd like to talk to is Exhibit 1, and this is the outcome of our annual risk assessment in relation to your financial audit. We identify some significant risks that we have to undertake audit work to mitigate. And this year we've identified, I think there's 3 risks there, of that. One is our standard management override risk, which is in every audit plan we undertake, so there's the standard work we do there. And the other 2 relate to ultimately the impact of COVID-19. The first one on the potential for impact around delivery. This is a challenging way of working. Ultimately we're hopefully coming to the end of the restrictions, and hopefully that will continue, but you never know as things go over the coming months. So we'll continue to work closely with Ben and the finance team around your close down processes to ensure that we can deliver as we're hoping to this coming year. The next one's a more specific one around this last year, has been very challenging for the council, and ultimately there's been a lot of new things to deal with, and as such, there's a number of particular risks linked to COVID-19, and some of those are then listed in the bullet points at the bottom of page 7, of the report, and we'll do specific audit work, on those areas during the next few months. We then go on to identify other areas of audit attention. None of these should be a particular surprise to you. There's certainly ones that we've included previously. The city deal continues to develop with projects being approved continually over the last few months, and that will continue, and we'll liaise with the auditors of the other city deal councils to see any issues coming out of any of that. The MacLeod judgment has been in audit plans in recent years and continues to be something that we have to keep in view, and we will do during this current year. And then you've got the capital expenditure on Swansea Central Phase 1. The project has been, to go in at quite a rate this last year, and the construction, although I haven't seen it in person as I haven't had the pleasure of being in Swansea in recent months, I believe it's obviously a very different site to what it was the last time I was in the Civic Centre. So a lot of expenditure will have gone through the accounts this year relating to that project. So that'll be very much something we'll take into account during the audit. And then some issues around related parties and senior officer remuneration disclosures that we'll pick up as part of the audit as well. The next exhibit, Exhibit 2, just outlines some other matters. One is relating to an accounting standard relating to leases. That was initially going to be introduced on the 1st of April 2021. However, that's now been delayed from the 1st of April 2022. However, that will have some considerable work to be done to identify leases, and ultimately, so there's something that we will keep in view as we go forward. And secondly, the Oracle cloud-based system that was supposed to be introduced previously has been delayed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and is aimed now to be introduced in October 2021. The next section of the report outlines our sort of work around our performance audit program for this particular year, and Exhibit 3 sort of goes through the specifics, of that that we will be working on with officers over the coming months. Then the next section talks about our grant claims, and as you can see, the amount of grant claims we audit have significantly reduced over the last few years, and as it currently stands, we're only expecting 5 grant claims to be audited this particular year. Then you've got a section on our statutory audit functions, and then coming down to a section on our fee and audit team. Pleasing to note that last year we were able to deliver the audit the financial audit in less cost than we estimated this time last year. So as such, we'll be in the process of giving a refund to the council of £8,000. However, due to the additional audit risks related to COVID-19, we've estimated the fee for this year to be consistent with what we estimated this time last year. As you know, we can only charge you what it actually costs us to deliver the audit. And if we do take less time and it comes in under the estimate, like we have done in this current year, we will provide you with a refund. The slight change to the grant certification work as that is reducing, and the other audit fees are consistent with what they were last year. Only one thing to note in the audit team section, all the people are exactly the same with the exception of a new audit manager for our performance audit, which is Non Jenkins, and I'm sure in time she'll come to meet you and be at this committee. Timetable wise, Exhibit 7 sort of goes through the timetable, albeit we sort of caveat in some of the dates in relation to the impact of COVID-19 potentially continuing, and obviously how we prioritize our audits this year. We'll be doing the health board audits first, and depending on how those audits go, it may impact our ability to start and when we finish the council audit. And that's pretty much, Chair, all I had to say, but I'm more than happy to take any questions members have.
Very much, Jason. Have we got any questions, please? Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'm very interested in the city deal side of things and so on. It actually says on page 16, and you mentioned it about auditors, liaising closely with the external auditors. What exactly do you mean by external auditors there with regards to the city deal?
We are your external auditors in Swansea. We're also the external auditors in Neath Talbot, Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire. Albeit I'm fortunate enough to be the audit manager for Carmarthenshire and the City Deal Joint Committee itself. So that gives me a great perspective of the whole projects and the whole scenario. But ultimately there will be different audit teams on Pembrokeshire and Neath Talbot, and we have periodic meetings as a group to see what issues are coming up as projects progress. My understanding, I think to date, is there's 4 or 5 of the projects have been signed off from a Welsh Government perspective, and they'll now be progressing. There are others to come in the months and years ahead. So ultimately it's all about that, just liaison amongst ourselves and amongst the different audit teams to ensure any issues are picked up.
Okay, yeah, that's what threw me really when you actually said, liaising with external. I thought there were other auditors from outside. So on.
No, Jeff, there's enough of us, surely.
Yeah. One other thing with the city deal as well, I know you've actually got part of your remit with regards to value for money. How do you actually measure that at the end of the day, shall we say, with regards to the city deal?
Our responsibilities in that regard are actually around the arrangements to achieve value for money, rather than a conclusion that a particular project, or something has achieved value for money. The amount of work that would need to be done, to come to such a conclusion, wouldn't be, something that, would be cost effective. So we look at and we conclude upon, the arrangements in place. So I've recently presented the audit plan to the City Deal Joint Committee, and one of the things we've included in that is, to keep in view the changes that have been made around governance and other arrangements as a result of a number of reviews that happened in the last couple of years. And those arrangements are now in the process of being embedded. And we will, look at those arrangements and how they've been embedded during this sort of current year to identify any issues if there are any, or, confirm to ourselves that the arrangements are working as they were hoped to be.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Peter Black.
Yeah, just to follow up that question, you say that you focus on the arrangements to achieve value for money, but to do that, surely you must define what value for money is. Would that be the case?
We would look at the economy, efficiency and effectiveness of the arrangements, and ultimately that is, there's no difference to what we would do on the City Deal is what we do on yourselves. As a council, every single year we come to a conclusion, on your value for money arrangements, and provide as part of our annual improvement report, a certificate, as part of the legislation that comes up with a conclusion in that regard. But so they're defined in those three areas, but we're not coming to a conclusion that everything the council does or everything the City Deal does is value for money.
So actually you're looking at governance as opposed to value for money.
We're looking at the arrangements in economy, efficiency and effectiveness to come to a conclusion that those arrangements should deliver value for money.
Okay, but surely you must define what value for money is to actually reach that conclusion.
The definitions are relating to those economy, efficiency and effectiveness, and the arrangements in place would be to deliver those things, but we have no responsibility to confirm that everything the council does is value for money.
So what would those definitions be?
I'll have to come back to you with the detail if I'm more than happy to do that.
Because I'm having difficulty separating what you're saying. You're talking about governance from what I can see, as opposed to actually an end outcome.
It's not just governance. It's all your financial arrangements, all your procurement arrangements, all your governance arrangements, all of those things, all your decision-making processes, all of those things are taken into account. But with those effective arrangements in place, the chances of the body achieving value for money are greatly enhanced. But what we're not saying is we're assessing every single project you're doing and coming to a conclusion that that project or whatever has achieved value for money.
I understand that. I mean, value for money is an outcome. What you're talking about is how you get to that outcome, which is the governance issues. Surely, I mean, I just having trouble with these terms in the way you're describing them. That's all.
Can I just intervene there? Adam Hill presented a paper at the last meeting around value for money and benchmarking, where he talked about the processes and how the council can demonstrate that they're aiming to achieve value for money from all the business transactions and the services they provide. So I think that was quite a helpful paper at the time that Adam presented. And I'm sure that's the paper that Jason Garcia and the team will be focusing on when they do that audit. But I understand what you're saying, Jason, and I also understand the question too, Peter.
Okay.
Are there any further questions on that matter? No? Okay, are there any further questions for Jason? Okay, if I can bring that to a close.
Julie's got a hand up, but muted. Julie, you're muted.
I can't see Julie's hand at all.
No, she's having problems.
She's having trouble, I think, isn't she? I think she's having problems. If I can just thank you, Jason, for the report.
No problem.
And the plan. We're asked to note that. But can I also thank you and the team for liaising with the officers of the council at such a difficult time in undertaking your work. So I know it's been challenging for the officers of this council as well as the Audit Wales team. and working together seems to have been the best outcome for you to conduct the work. So can I thank you for you and the team, Jason?
Thank you very much.
Okay, if we can move on then to agenda item 5, which is the Fraud Function Annual Plan 21-22. And I understand Jeff Fish is going to join us for this. But before I invite Jeff to speak, when I looked at this paper, there's a lot of information attached that we saw at the last meeting. So what I've asked Jeff to do is just to focus on the areas of this document that he wants the Audit Committee to consider and to approve, which is all around the plan. And then we'll open up for questions once Jeff has done that. So can I welcome you, Jeff, and ask you to take us through the paper?
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that introduction to explain to members what I propose to do this afternoon. Just to confirm as well, I'm also joined by my colleague Jonathan Rogers, who will field any difficult questions that I can't deal with. Can I just, by way of reference, before I introduce the plan to members for them to consider, also make reference to a point that Jason mentioned about the challenges of this year. And I think it would also be remiss of me to not mention to members that actually today constitutes day 400 of working from home for myself and my colleagues. Little did we know last year that we would be working in these situations for so long. And I make reference to that because we have had regard to those issues of a COVID nature when we've drawn up that plan, Chair. That's the reason I introduced that anecdote. So as you say, Chair, there's a number of background papers which members will be familiar with. And because there are reference to those documents brought by Adam to the last meeting that we discussed then, they're included again here for reference. Members of the committee will be familiar with the layout of this report, which they'll find in their pack, starts at page 29 and runs through to 107. A lot of those introductory documents set out the strategic and legal basis for the need for a flawed plan, and also set out member responsibilities, officer responsibilities and staff responsibilities around those. Those have not fundamentally changed for the last 5 years that we brought you. It's the legal basis for that framework. If there were any changes there, I would highlight those to yourself, Chair, and to members, but they're not there. But I appreciate I'll take any questions in relation to those. So in particular, what I'd like to focus on are Appendix 3, 4 and 5. Very much what informs our work plan is the anti-fraud risk assessment checklist, which is shown at pages 91 to 96. It basically is contained within 27 broad topic areas at which we annually ask ourselves these questions. And these inform our structure for the plan. I'm pleased to report again this year, Chair, that the majority of those elements are met, and the only exception to those that's not met is actually picked up as part of Simon's direct function. That's at question 4 about review all work of the organisation. That very much falls under a Simon's audit programme. So I'm pleased again that we've met all those requirements this year. I was slightly concerned as to whether the impact of last year would have any detrimental effect on that, but I'm pleased to report to members that we have met all those requirements again this year. And again, we've had considerations of those in developing the plan. I think what it's also important to stress to members this year is we have very much, as we've alluded to, I think in the 2 or 3 occasions we reported to you last year, we have become embroiled in supporting COVID in a number of ways throughout the year. And we've had to consider, same as Jason have, what they may or may not have an effect in our programme going forward. So myself and Simon and Jonathan, and indeed Ben, have had some detailed conversations as to how substantially they should affect the plan or otherwise for next year. What we have decided is that substantially we are keeping the same plan again for this year. Yes, that plan was disrupted significantly last year as a result of COVID and some other factors, but we felt that it was important to keep our core plan the same and return to that. And just with that in mind, Chair, we're already into the new financial year, so subject to the approval of the plan by yourselves, we're working towards that. And what's significant is we're already seeing the green shoots of us returning to dare I use the phrase, return to work as normal. Yes, we are still working from home, but we've just had approval now from Ben to move into some areas that we have been restricted from doing so before. So we're doing some preparatory work in relation to going back into some areas that we've been prevented from working before because of COVID restrictions. And significantly as well, we're moving from areas of direct support around COVID work to some early post-assurance work. And again, there's some emerging data that's being shared with Ben, and again will be shared with this committee later on in the year. So as a result of undertaking that risk assessment and having due regard to COVID, we then moved on to Appendix 5. Appendix 4 is just the shall I say, the fuller narrative in relation to the actual content of the plan. The content of the plan, as you're aware, Chair, from your communication with me yesterday, is covered in page 105 to 107 of Members' Bundle. And I'll just lead you through those very briefly. So our key aims for the year ahead will be to tackle social housing tenancy fraud. It's apparent from the referrals that did come in last year that this is still an issue, not a significant issue, members, I share that, but there are some concerns around social housing tenancy fraud, in particular subletting of properties. So we will be returning to those very quickly. In fact, they're one of our key priorities at the moment. Tackle council tax fraud, which quite often sits alongside that, but is also an independent area of concern that we have. And then alongside that, council tax reduction fraud. This obviously involves us working closely with our colleagues in the Department for Work and Pension, who we work jointly with on the majority of those cases. Just to make members aware, at the moment, the DWP still have a reduced presence in relation to that area of work, and it's something that we're in constant dialogue with them in relation to that going forward. Item 4 within the programme of work then is the National Fraud Initiative 2020. That data has now been received this year. The output was received at the end of February and January. We're waiting additional data outputs in relation to COVID grants. It's anticipated that that's going to be a large amount of data coming towards us. And just last week, we have made some significant progress in making sure the distribution of all those appropriate matches go out to the relevant people. So hopefully, again, when we come back to you later in the year, we can give you some early reports as part of our annual plan, annual report for last year, Chair. But a significant amount of work will be taken up around NFI. Again, one of those things that we embed within the plan is addressing any internal employee matters. Our opportunities, I mean, I share with you, Chair, that there have been fewer reports this year. During the year. Whether the impact of that is directly related to COVID is unclear at the moment, but there have been fewer employee matters referred to us. And obviously some of those that have come to us, we've been restricted in what we're able to do. So again, that's a key element of our plan. Unfortunately, it's anticipated that there won't be a year when we don't have some employee matters to address. Over on to the last page then. These are sort of very broad, really, if you like, Chair, rather than specific. So the top field there covers everything else. And there's a couple of examples there, list of areas that we may be drawn into. Sitting alongside that then is whilst we look at all of those areas about raising awareness in general there, you'll be aware from the report that came to committee from Adam the other month, certainly raising awareness is with regard to the development of the training programme, which we're going to be working with Adrian Chard for this year. And then the addition to the programme this year is the last item, Chair. So members may recall that what we did last year was we consolidated the plan. We historically had 9 areas of work. We consolidated those to 7 because some of them were slightly repetitious, but we've increased it now to 8 this year. And that's under this heading of policy and procedure developments. And you'll see there by way of an explanation, Chair, it says to work with nominated officers as prescribed in the action plan presented to Audit Committee on the 9th of March to deliver on the appropriate actions. You'll recall yourself, Chair, that you expressed support for us, but also hesitancy with the volume of actions that had been identified within that plan. And the aspirational timetable that had been set. but we felt that it was important that it was contained within the body of our core plan. And those are the areas that we propose to focus on this year, Chair. And as I said in my introductions, I'm happy for myself or Jonathan or indeed Simon to field any questions that members may have. Thank you.
Very much, Chair. I comment before I open up to questions. I'm pleased to see the policy and procedure development as part of the action plan and also raising awareness, because that was something that wasn't as visible in previous years, and particularly the raising the game actions that were reported, as you say, by Adam, and that was quite a large number of tasks for you to generate. So, you know, I wouldn't take away the significance of that work in completing that work alongside the investigative matters that you're already doing. So are there any questions? I can see Councillor Mike Lewis's hand up. Councillor Mike Lewis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask Jeff, really, if his department has enough resources coming out of COVID to deal with obviously an increase in fraud, because during this COVID period, lots of people have been working from home and had the opportunity to commit some types of fraud. So I'm just making sure really that, although I've read through the plan last night and it seems fine to me, but I'm just a bit concerned that your department has enough resources to address any increase in fraud. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Possibly if I respond, and then equally I'll look for some support from Simon in relation to that as well. Yeah, it would be wrong of me to say resources is not a constant challenge in this particular area. The plan is very much based on a proactive plan, but because of the nature of the work that we do, and again, it's something we've reported to members a number of occasions, it can be very reactive and therefore has a direct impact on the plan and thereby resources. I know that, again, Ben has often supported us and said that resource is constantly under review. And I think this year, one positive I would take out of the situation with regards to restricted resources because of COVID, councillors, is possibly we've done more work with our audit colleagues this year than we have before, because we have had to cut our cloth effectively and utilise each other's resources, and that may well be something that we continue to do going forward, obviously subject to the pressures of Simon's audit plan as well. I'll defer to Simon to top up that answer, I'm sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Mike, for the query. As Jeff has said, I'll just echo the fact that we are trying to keep resources constantly under review. In terms of an increase in fraud that you referred to, I know we've had an increase in referrals, but as Jeff has said in previous meetings, and we've got no evidence of that actually proving to be fraudulent activity. We've had more allegations come in on more cases. I don't know if that's because people have had more time at home to put an allegation in, but we've not seen at this point any direct increase in fraud activity that's been proven. I know Ben's conscious of the resource levels within both fraud and audit at all times, and is constantly under review. And yes, there has been an increase in workload in the year, and they are now going to have to pick back up really where we kind of missed off last year in the plan, which is primarily why we've kept the plan the same for 21-22 with the same priorities as we've had previously. I'm not sure if maybe Adam or Ben wants to pick up on the resources comments that's been raised, but I mean, as I said, we are keen to keep it under review, and we are conscious of the pressures that the team are under at the moment.
On that.
Probably appropriate for me to come in, Chair, at that invite if you're content.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, and the team have been appropriately circumspect. It is a small fraud team, and I'd echo what Simon and Jeff have said in that there is no immediate concern beyond the normal concern that committee has rightly expressed. I would remind members that council has only just set a budget, and that budget determines the cloth accordingly, but I am actively weighing at all times, and perhaps more so than ever, the overall resources that are available both to audit as a whole, but especially to fraud. And committee can be assured that if I feel at any point that I need to act, I will not be bashful at coming forward with firm and clear advice to the executive and to the committee. It is something that I am giving more active consideration than recently to, but it's something that's always under consideration. But I must equally work within the cloth afforded to me in terms of the overall package, which is the sum at council agreed for the director as a whole. But yes, it would not be an understatement to say that I am weighing it. Partly we'll see how it goes, and in terms of where stuff is, I mean, as Jeff has referred to, two of the items are trying to be a bit more proactive. We've clearly made the point in recent years that as the team is small, it has had to be reactive, but again would remind committee that we are fortunate in local government circles to at least have a dedicated team. Most don't, but it is one that I'm leaning more towards considering needing some more resource, but I will need to evidence it in due course. But rest assured, if I am concerned at a statutory level, I will make my feelings known appropriately to all channels, and I would expect full support from members and corporate management team colleagues.
Hands up, but before I leave that point, can I just ask Ben, are we monitoring the successive recoveries, the financial value of recoveries from the counter fraud investigations? Because there's a bit for me of investing to save. So if you've got a track record of, quite significant recoveries as a result of the investigation made by Jeff and his colleague Jonathan, that's surely a valuable task to justify further investment. So are we monitoring the savings and the recoveries?
The team do track what they achieve. I mean, we equally do have a track record of in the past. It can be dangerously overstated equally in some respects, because instead of it being about the value for money or cost effectiveness of what is recovered, I put rather more weight on the deterrent factor. It's the unmeasured bits that are probably much more worthwhile than the others. I mean, anyone can make an individual case for individual items in terms of value, but we've eased off a little bit in terms of doing a straight correlation between how much you spend versus how much you recover, because we might have recovered some of it anyway. For me, it's about that deterrent factor and reminding all staff, all members of the public, 99.99% of everyone does nothing wrong, but it is that deterrent factor which is worth more than whatever we ultimately spent on the team. So I take your point, Chair. We do track it, but we don't ostensibly publish it as much as we have in the past because it's caused us some difficulty, shall we say. I'll say no more. I can see Jeff nodding. It's a fine balance, as I say. The deterrent factor is the bit for me which is important, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. OK, I've got some hands up now. So if we go with Councillor Mike White first. Thank you for your patience, Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Jeff, just a question. You obviously touched on social housing tenancy fraud. As you know, West Government 215 brought in obviously registration of social landlords to be registered as a local authority. Is this made aware to the where you have found that landlords, where you have found any breaches, are aware that this is a duty that they got to have in place?
Thank you for the question, Councillor White. That's slightly cross-cutting two themes there. So subletting, we are particularly talking about in the housing social sector. Obviously, as you're aware, we still have our own housing stock there. We aren't actually required or permitted to actually look at subletting within the registered social housing provider. So your housing associations, that's not an area of work that we actually currently work within, albeit there has historically been a dialogue around that, when also, as well as a subletting concern, should we say, there's a benefit concern as well. So our particular area of focus is in within our own housing stock. The other thing with regards to the registration then, as such, you may well be aware that Swansea is the lead authority with regards to the regulatory process, and Paula Livingstone is one of the key officers for that at a Wales-wide level. So we have a good track record of appropriate registration for RSLs in Swansea.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I missed the first bit of your presentation, so I might be asking something that's already been covered. But in terms of the proactive work, I understand that House Benefits use some data mining tool. Is that true of other systems?
Yeah, yes, there is. It's something. It's something that we. I suppose the word to use, Julie, would be we've dabbled where appropriate. So where the need has arisen, we've used data extraction tools. There's a particular software package called IDEA that we use to cross-match data. What we also find is that the volume of data that come out from NFI biannually and the level of assurance that by effective use of that gives us, there's not the huge identifiable need for a lot of supplementary data matching around that. But certainly the tools are available should they be used and are used. In actual fact, we're currently doing a data match exercise at the moment with regard to some grant payments that we're looking at. So yes, we do use it proactively. Do we optimize its use? Probably not as much as we could. And again, as with everything that we do, there's room for improvement and further bespoke use of some of those tools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm using my wife's computer to actually look at the agenda, and it's frozen. I must admit, when we went through there, we seemed to shoot forward to page 116 or whatever. But I'm going back really to page 38. Does the organisation have an appropriate response to fraud? But there doesn't seem to be any plans in place. I know there's August 2021 actually there and so on. I just try to clarify in my mind, if we've got no plan in place, how do you actually work at the present time? What do you follow?
Right. So just to remind, so this is the early report that Adam brought. Yeah, it's the reference in that document. Yeah, it's number 6.1 at the bottom of page 38.
Well, yeah, it's more than 6.1. It's as I said, my screen's frozen. I think it's 6.2 and so on. I know the plan is going to be put in place for August. I'm just wondering at the present time, what sort of process do you follow if there are no plans in place?
Yeah, I think where this stems from, Councillor Jones, is that these two pieces of work were slightly separate. Obviously, Adam was and I appreciate Adam's still on the course and come back in, but Adam was responding to the specific questions that arose from the Audit Wales response. Okay. So the response was in the way in which those questions were structured. Behind that, the audit plan is obviously, sorry, the anti-fraud plan has obviously been there as a rolling programme for 5 years. Yeah. So our plan is there and underpins that. If you like, those additional questions which the Audit Wales report brought out, we had to answer them honestly and see if there were any shortcomings or shortfall in the plan, and that's why they've been highlighted there. So what we've done, and again, as the chair is acknowledged, in our plan now, we've now added this item, so it's embedded within our core plan. Hopefully that explains that, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'm not seeing any more hands up. So can I thank you once again, both Jeff and Jonathan, for the work that you're doing. It's a very valuable area of work for the authority. Jeff, is your hand still up?
No.
No.
Other Jeff.
My apologies.
Yeah, you're okay. So again, so thank you both very much for this paper and for the update. We're being asked to approve the plan, which is what's contained on page 105, 106 and 107. So I believe Jeremy will need to take a vote on that for approving the plan. So can I hand over to Jeremy, please?
Okay, if we can start with Councillor Cyril Anderson. Cyril?
Yeah, sorry, I remuted myself. Yeah, 4, mate.
Okay, Councillor Peter Black.
4.
Julie Davis.
4.
Councillor David Hellywell.
4.
Councillor Terry Hennigan. Councillor Paxton Hood Williams.
4.
Peter Jones, apologies. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yes, 4.
Councillor Mike Lewis.
4, Chair.
Chair.
4.
Councillor Sam Pritchard.
4.
Councillor Mike White.
4.
There we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's the plan approved for you, Jeff. So good luck over the next 12 months in delivering that, and look forward to receiving updates.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. And with your permission, we will, so to speak, return to the coalface forthwith and leave you in Simon's capable hands.
Carry on.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, if we can move on to agenda item 6, which is the Internal Audit Charter 2021-22. And if I can invite Simon just to present the charter, if you could bear in mind that we've seen this on a number of occasions, so if you can perhaps keep it in summary version, please, Simon.
Of course, Chair. Thanks very much. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Yeah, as the Chair has said, this report comes to the committee on an annual basis. It's a requirement of the public sector standards that every provider of an internal audit service has to have an internal audit charter in place. It's a formal document that sort of defines the internal audit's purpose, authority and responsibility within the organisation. I'm required to review the charter on an annual basis and present it to the corporate management team. So this is the draft internal charter, which was also reviewed by CMT last week. So that's been approved by CMT as of the 9th of March. So it's come back to committee for annual review and annual approval. I'll just skim through the main contents of the charter. So you've got the definition of internal audit on 118. The role and function of internal audit. It talks about the scope of our work, the fact that we're independent of the organisation and of other departments, our involvement in consultancy work as well as assurance work, and again then our responsibility for fraud, bribery and corruption as an independent arm of the authority. So yeah, as the Chair has alluded, there's very little difference to this report to the last year. There's one part I'd like to point out in the appendices, which is Appendix C on page 129. I know Tracy Meredith brought a report to committee outlining some proposed changes to the terms of reference for the committee. As you can see from the papers today, the name has already changed on the papers, and there are further amendments that have been proposed to the terms of reference as of today. So this is a work in progress, and I believe Adam and Tracy will bring back a report to members finalising those changes in due course. The changes are due to be implemented over the next municipal year, so I expect a few changes to take place between now and next May, and obviously officers will come back to update members on those. But other than that, there's very little change to the report, so I'm happy to take any questions if members have any.
Okay, Adam, can I invite you? Do you want to comment on the terms of reference at this point?
Thank you, Chair. As Simon explained, we're pulling together on the back of the Local Government and Elections Act and the SIPFA guidance in terms of reference to bring it up to date really with the new elements that are going to come in, part of which is about monitoring of complaints, part is around the performance, and that should hopefully come to the next audit committee in May. We met today as a little working group to just try and get all the bits pulled together, and I'll just do a top and tail and then hopefully hit the May for members to review. It will then have to progress through to the Constitution Working Group and then on to full council, because it's ultimately a full council decision to change the terms of reference for Audit Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. I've got a hand up, Julie Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Appendix 1, Simon, paragraph 5.5. It needs to be amended to to reflect the change in composition of the Audit Committee, because it currently says unrestricted access to the Chair of the Audit Committee and elected members, But of course, there are lay members on there now as well.
Yes, of course. Sorry, Julia, I missed that. I can update that. Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we're asked to approve the internal audit charter. So can I ask that we approve it subject to the changes that are required now to Appendix C? So can we go through the voting, please, Jeremy?
Okay. Councillor Cyril Anderson.
For.
Councillor Peter Black.
For.
Julie Davis.
For.
Councillor David Helliwell.
For.
Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
For.
Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yes, for.
Councillor Mike Lewis.
For.
Chair.
For.
Councillor Sam Pritchard.
For.
Councillor Mike White.
For.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you for that, Simon. If we can now move on to the internal audit plan for 21-22. Agenda item 7.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Again, there's very little change to the draft plan that came to committee in the last meeting. This is just the final version of that plan for ultimate approval by committee members. The plan has to be linked to a strategy document as required by the standards, which basically explains how we implement the plan and how we deliver our services in the year. So as you can see throughout the document, I'll just highlight some of the key parts. So it talks about our resources for the year, which again is the same as previous years. It sort of describes how we complete our assurance services, our consultancy work, and how it's actually delivered in terms of how we can conduct a review, how we report the findings, and then how we also then follow up with the recommendations that we make. So again, it's very static to previous years. It describes what a lot of members are already aware of in the rollout and implementation of the plan. It's just a requirement of the standards to have that linked to the final version of the plan that was approved by committee in March. So the Appendix 2 is a summary of the final plan. And then Appendix 3 is the plan as was the draft in March for final approval. Again, there's no significant changes from the draft version that was approved previously.
Thank you, Simon. Before I ask for approval or comments, can I just remind members of the Audit Committee that when we looked at this the last time, we approved it with the caveat that we're not cited of the scope of the audits. So we are solely reliant on the Chief Internal Auditor's assurance that it's risk-based, it's focused in the right areas, the scope and objectives of the individual assignments reflect the aims and objectives of the Council. So we are really solely placing reliance on the Chief Internal Auditor's assurance in this regard. And maybe as we move forward into future years, we can talk further, Simon, about how we can get more detail behind the plan so that we are fully informed. But maybe that's a development. It's not an absolute need for now, but I'd like to see that as we move forward in the future, particularly with the increased responsibilities of the Audit Committee under the new bill. So not wanting to labour on that any further, have we any questions? Julie Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Simon, I was going to ask Jason this question, but as I had computer problems, I couldn't ask it at the time. Audit Wales have got an audit of the Oracle Cloud implementation and also City Deal, and you also have audit in your audit plan. So Jason agreed to share the findings of their audit with you, but could you ensure that you liaise with him so that we can optimise assurance coverage and minimise duplication of audit?
Yes, thanks, Julie. We broke up a little bit there, but I think I've got the gist of what you were trying to say. The Oracle Cloud work that I've included in my plan primarily relates to our involvement in the handover of the system. So it's an internal assurance. For example, when we changed to the Oracle Cloud the last time, the Oracle project, we were involved with the data migration and the checking of those data migration controls, as opposed to an external review of the system. Right. And again, similarly for the City Deal, we have included some time in there to just keep a track of Swansea specific projects. we've done some internal work over the past 12 months to keep a track of the projects themselves, and have produced an update memo for the department. Again, but that's more of an internal monitoring of the projects as opposed to an external review of them. So I think that's where there might be a slight difference. I'm not sure if Jason wants to come in there, but that is the scope of the activities we've put in our internal audit plan, is to try and provide internal assurance and internal monitoring of the projects.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Yeah, from our perspective, if we look at the Oracle Cloud side of things, it's such a significant change to the main financial accountancy system. We will be looking at it very much from a point of view of the impact that has on your future statement of accounts, and that the accuracy that's coming out of the system and the controls in place are all effective to generate your statement of accounts for next year. So we will be doing early work with our IT audit specialists, looking at how the data has been transferred over, ensuring that it's been done in an accurate way, that all the transactions to a point in time have got onto the new system accurately, and the impact it has on what we call your financial control environment as part of our risk assessment processes. So that's very much the work we'll be doing as part of our 21-22 audit, which will probably be sort of in the last quarter of this particular year once the implementation is sort of happened in October. As far as the city deal is concerned, Simon's right. You've got to separate the individual projects which are being led by one of the 4 individual councils that are partners to the city deal from the city deal joint committee itself, which oversees the governance arrangements and the decision-making processes on behalf of those 4 bodies. So Simon's right, doing his work specifically on Swansea-related projects is perfectly applicable from an internal audit perspective. We'll very much look at the city deal Swansea projects from an accountancy point of view and a financial statements point of view, but also liaising then with our other external audit teams and the other bodies around general Swansea-based city deal issues that might occur at the joint committee level itself.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Julie, if I could just come back to you as well on that point. I just noticed on the plan, we've got Swansea Central Phase 1, which are the Swansea specific projects, and the city deal review outcomes. That is keeping a track of, don't know if you recall, but there was an external review undertaken of the whole project by Pembrokeshire and an external consultant. So that is then as continuing to track the implementation of those findings as well. So there's 2 parts of the activities there.
Okay, thank you. And
I just add to that.
Oh, go on.
If I could just add to that, the second part of that work that Simon's just referred to is something I was keen to see being done, because we were not sighted of how that was operating within the Pembrokeshire area. So I'm keen to see that kept in the plan for some time.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Julie.
No, it's a question that's a second question that involves Jason and Simon. Audit Wales have said in Exhibit 1 in other areas of audit attention that they were going to look at related parties and senior officer remuneration. Given the issues that have risen recently at Westminster in terms of conflict of interest, will you be expanding the review to include the conflicts of interest of officers and councillors? Sorry, could you hear me properly?
So is that for me, Julie? Sorry, or Simon? Were you asking?
Well, either of you.
Okay. If you want me to start, then ultimately within your statement of accounts, you will have your related party disclosures at an organisational level, but potentially at a member level as well, where you all make your declarations on an annual basis as to your relationship that you have with other organisations and roles you have with other organisations. And then the council has to assess, are those roles requiring specific disclosures? So we will do work reviewing the processes that are in place to assess how the council itself is collecting all the information it is requiring from senior officers and members, and then assessing that information to assess whether they need to make specific disclosures in their financial statements. So that'll be the work that we will be doing. I don't know if Simon's got anything planned from his end.
Just to pick up on that, Julie, I think we have got some standard audits on the general audit programme. I don't think they're actually included on this plan, but they're just part of a 3-yearly programme. So we do undertake a review of declaration of interests, for example, for officers and members. Gifts on hospitality is a standard audit that we repeat on a periodic basis as well. I don't think they're actually specified in the plan as it is for the next financial year, but they are periodic reviews that we do include as part of our rolling programme.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps you could come back to me, let me know when it was last done.
Yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant, thank you.
If there are no more questions on that, I've got no more hands up. We've been asked to approve the plan, but if we can approve it in the minutes with a caveat that we are placing total reliance on the Chief Internal Auditor's assurance that the plan has followed all the requirements of the internal audit standards and will focus on the risks and the objectives of the Council in the absence of us seeing the objectives. So I'll hand over to Jeremy to take the vote on that.
Okay, Councillor Cyril Anderson.
4.
Councillor Peter Black.
4.
Julie Davis.
4.
Councillor David Helliwell.
4.
Councillor Paxton Hood Williams.
4.
Councillor Jeff Jones. Councillor Jeff Jones.
Sorry, I thought he came on then. 4. Yeah.
Councillor Mike Lewis.
4.
Chair.
4.
Councillor Sam Pritchard.
4.
And Councillor Mike White. Councillor Mike White.
He's gone.
Oh, he's left.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's gone.
There we are. Thank you. That's approved.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving towards the end of the meeting. There's just 2 agenda items left. The action tracker, agenda item 8. There are a number of ongoing actions on the tracker, but we've got dates when those individual actions will come back to the audit committee for our attention or for our approval. I think work is progressing. I can understand the position as being ongoing because of the current COVID restrictions and also the pressures of the officers. But hopefully, as things start to pick back up, we'll start to see those being closed off and those actions being completed. Unless there are any questions, the tracker is for information and for us to note. No questions on that. With regards to the next agenda item, which is the work plan, Jeremy has assured me prior to the meeting that he's working on the work plan now, so we've got a projection over the next 6 months or so of what's coming to the committee, recognising we've got additional responsibilities coming through. If I can also add to that, one of the agenda items which will be coming either at the May or June meeting will be the annual governance statement. And Councillor Leslie Walton has sent me an email just to say she couldn't attend the audit committee. She wasn't able to attend the governance meeting in March, but she did attend the April one, and she's confirmed that the processes appear robust. All 4 directorates had completed and sent in their assessments on time. The AGS is still being pulled together in its draft form. Richard Rowlands is leading that work, and they hope to present it to the May Audit Committee in the first draft. Richard Rowlands has also informed me that at that meeting, the members of that group were concerned around the level of detail and the variable approaches and consistency around the information. And there was a debate on what constitutes a significant risk vis-à-vis an operational risk and the clarification that was needed around that. The points were being raised and discussed at CNT, so I'm comfortable with the focus that draft annual governance statement is receiving, but obviously we will have an opportunity to review it in detail in May. So I've got no more to say on that. I just read from the notes that I was given. So hopefully we'll have an updated plan for the next meeting. So we've got further projection of what we're likely to see. I would add we may have a few more agenda items creeping on to the plan because of the new responsibilities of the Audit Committee, but I'm sure Adam will refer to that when he brings the paper to the Audit Committee about those responsibilities and the revisions to the terms of reference. So are there any other questions before I bring the meeting to a close? Julie Davis.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask Simon when we can expect to see the Q1 plan?
Julie, we don't break the plan down into quarters for a committee. That's something that Nick does internally. So he has the annual plan and then breaks those down for staff. Are you referring to a Q1 monitoring report or Q4 monitoring report maybe, or the annual report?
No, a Q1 plan of the work that's going on, because following on from the Chair's comment about the scope of individual audits, it would be nice for Audit Committee, well, I would like to see a breakdown of what is intended to be delivered in Q1, so that if we would like to feed into the scope, we've got the chance to do that.
Maybe something we need to discuss outside of the meeting, Julie, because in the past we've reported the scope of the review as part of the quarterly report, which is after the event. So it's not normally the case where we would inform members of the scope of the review while it's ongoing. It's been reported after the report's been finalised, essentially. But
if I could add to that's something I raised when we approved the annual plan the last time. We're not cited of the objectives and the scope until after the event when the work is done, and that's something that we need to look to improve as time goes on. But I think what we're expecting next of Simon, I believe, is the Q4 position, which will include the scopes of the work that was done in Q4, although it is retrospective and we haven't got an input into influencing the field work. But we have to place reliance on the Chief Internal Auditor's assurance that the scope has been done in accordance with need. But it's something that we need to perhaps consider for a future iteration of how we receive progress reports, maybe in advance of, even if it starts to probe out what the big key areas of risk are, so we have an opportunity to see what the objectives and the aims of that report. But it's something I'd like to take outside of this meeting with Simon, Julie, because I think that's the devil of the detail and the approach that the Chief Internal Auditor is undertaking. And I think, we need to place some reliance on the assurance he's given us. But I would like to see some changes to that, which we can talk about perhaps over the next few months.
Okay, and just to say, I know the work is being done because the audit plan is a risk-based audit plan, so I know that Simon and his team would be considering the draft scope before putting the audits into the annual plan. So I've full confidence in the team.
Yeah. Okay then, if there are no other questions, I'd like to bring the meeting to a close. Once again, can I thank everybody for their participation today. It's an earlier meeting, an earlier finish for everyone today. But thank you very much, and please stay safe, and look forward to seeing you again in May. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chairman.
Bye all.
so bye.
Thank you, Chair. Bye.
Bye all. Pull up.